Good morning, you're listening to 92.7 Arrow FM, and this is a Nothing Personal show with Nikki King. This morning I've got David Lint from Tall Tree Business Advisory with me, but I'll introduce him in a little while. We are part of the Wairarapa Women in Business Facebook group, which is a community on Facebook that deals with, we network together in a Facebook group, and we discuss all our issues that we might have, women related issues, business related issues, anything like that, and you can go in there. If you've got a business, you can apply to join, answer 3 simple questions, and you'll be in. And you can then, network with other women, and also get involved with the group. And our show, it is sponsored by Jane Burns and Wairarapa Osteopathy. Thank you to them. They've got a website, you can Google them, you go and have a look. They've got a place in Carterton and also in Masterton at the Self Heal Clinic. So thank you to Jane for sponsoring our show and believing in Access Radio. And thank you, and also Fuzzbox Designs, my business, we sponsor this show too. So if you want any digital marketing or any websites, that kind of thing, you can get in touch with us. Okay, so I'm going to say hello to David. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Nikki.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm quite good. So can you just tell us a little bit about what you do so everybody at home can know?
Sure. Tall Tree, is a bit of an outlet for my vocational day-to-day activities, and Tall Tree does a range of things, but broadly speaking it's a business advisory company, so we provide a range of business services, including mentoring, for example, for up-and-coming businesses. Yes,
because a few of our women are using your services at the moment, so that's quite cool, isn't it?
It is, and it's really great to be able to see the great strides they're all making. I mean, it's been a fantastic time for all of them, and it's obviously it's obviously great for all of us.
Yeah, because Wairarapa is a pretty big hive of small businesses. It's that kind of area.
And it seems to be going all the more that way. I mean, obviously, small businesses is what makes up the larger number of businesses on the planet. Certainly no different in New Zealand, and Wairarapa seems to be going through a little bit of a boom at the moment with lots of new businesses emerging over the last year or two.
Yeah, there has been actually, because in my business, I know I deal with a lot of people in that startup position, and certainly I've seen an increase in new businesses coming to me rather than people wanting redesigns or anything like that. So that is a pretty good indication that Wairarapa is up and coming.
Indeed.
So what services particularly do you offer? Because there's a few. There's not just mentoring, is there?
No, there's not. Look, I've got a long background working with a range of organisations and sizes. I've done sort of public sector organisations and private. I've done small. I've done startup. I've spent some time in medium-sized businesses as well. Typically businesses going through lots of change. They might be changing the way that they look at the world. They might be bringing new products to market. Maybe they've just gone through a recent acquisition or merger, all of those sorts of things. So lots of diverse experience there. And then for some of the larger businesses, for multinationals, I've been involved in helping them to turn around underperforming business units. So those tend to be larger exercises. They tend to be transnational, so you're working across boundaries, across borders, and you're tackling something which is sort of fundamentally broken in the business in which they need to catch up. And often large businesses find it difficult to keep the pace that small businesses do. So that's one of the big advantages small businesses have, is they can be very nimble. Large businesses get set in their way, and sometimes they fall off the curve they might like to be on. So also I've led turnaround in large businesses as well. So really, Tall Tree is a bit of a vehicle for me to bring all of those skills that I've acquired over several decades to the local business community here. Certainly, I seem to have found a little bit of a niche in the last year or so with small businesses, which is fantastic.
There's a lot of those around.
But equally, been involved in running some reasonable-sized projects for some of the larger businesses as well. So there's a pretty broad brush in terms of the experience I bring, but it's everything from the grassroots, how do I, where do I, what do I, to evolving your business as it changes and grows. How do you seize opportunities? How do you combat threats? How do you keep a performing team?
Yeah.
How do you keep your focus where it needs to be?
Yeah.
How do you manage efficiently and effectively?
That's right.
What sort of processes do you have? What sort of processes do you need? And are the two aligned? Because again, even small and growing businesses will go from a state where they don't need an awful lot of defined process to needing better process, and then perhaps to documented process as they grow. Otherwise, they find they reinvent the wheel every time they face a challenge.
I think that's probably where my business is at the moment. I started, we had the skills, we jumped out and thought, right, well, actually, it was I was just talking to Veronica and Michael in there, about, I used to work for Reed back in Britain years ago, and decided that I'd never work for anyone else again because I had a terrible experience in work. So invented my own job. That's how it came about, really. I needed to work, and I'd come across the world, not worked for 10 years, bringing up kids, and decided to invent my own job. And it was just a job, but now if you're doing things right, you get bigger. And then you need to work out how you're going to manage that. Do you get bigger or do you charge more money? So coming to somebody like you would be a valuable task for somebody who's not put those processes in.
Yeah, I think too. We establish businesses, as people, and we hope that they'll grow, and we do what we think we can to spread the word about them. But if we're doing a good job, then the people we do the good job for start to spread the word.
Exactly, and you get overrun with people, and
that's a nice problem to have. But,
it is.
But equally, it is a problem, and a lot of people do grapple with being too successful too fast.
So that's right.
It tends to be one side or the other. You're either working hard to make things work.
Yes.
Or you're working hard to work out how you keep on top of it all. Yeah.
So in your role as a business mentor, because I know a lot of women will be tuned into this and interested in that because they're probably at similar stages to me. Could you handle any kind of problem that they wanted to get over? Because there's many. Some people have trouble with marketing, and I don't have a problem with that. Whereas other people like me might have process problems. So would you deal with all sorts of things?
Well, certainly I deal with all sorts of things. Yep. I don't claim to be the expert in everything, and there are certain things that while I can lend my insight to, I'm not necessarily going to be. I'm not necessarily going to suggest that you rely wholly on what I might suggest either. Yep. So if you want, specific in-depth financial information or legal advice or whatever, then those sorts of advice, I can lend some context to. But equally, you should seek the advice of the appropriate, skilled people.
But you might direct them to the right people.
I guess what my years in business have given me is an ability to look at most aspects of business. And the things that surround business. And the other advantage I have that people in their own business don't have is that I'm looking at it from the outside in. And so often it's so hard to, wood for trees, clear the spaces, and be able to see it as clearly as maybe someone who doesn't have to deal with the emotional impact or.
I think that's very true because I do a little bit of that with marketing. People come in and they go, and they say, and you look at it from the outside and go, well, do you not think it's this? And then they go, oh, I never thought of it like that, and it's quite nice to have that insight from someone else, isn't it?
And sometimes even when I don't necessarily have, an answer or the right answer, what I can do is prompt by questioning you to consider things in different ways.
Yeah, so, like a counsellor.
So a little like you say, someone comes to you and you say, well, why haven't you thought of it like? And they go, Well, it's almost like, well, I don't necessarily have all of those answers or even all of the insight off the bat. But maybe we can ask some questions. Use some of my other skills to try and elicit from you where those important things are. And then we can start to get to, okay, so what are the paths forward? What are the pros of those? What are the cons? Which one makes the most sense? Is there a standout, or do we have to, kind of take a couple of steps to work out which one is the right one to follow?
That's right. And what I will say is that some people find it quite daunting to get in touch with people, especially they do this with me. So I wonder if, that might be a thing. They come and they're like, oh, they apologise for everything. and, he's like, well, this is my job. That's what I do. But, so do you have a process where people can get in touch with you at the outset? Do you make that easy for them?
Certainly that's what I try to do. And look, I hope that, I hope, A, that people do find that.
Yes.
And B, that if they don't, they tell me. But I try to work on the basis that it's a whole lot easier to work with people you like and that you have some respect for.
That's right.
And so if we start from there, I'll freely offer some time to sit down and have a coffee or whatever, and whatever
That's
chat
right.
off the bat. No strings, no expectations.
That's right.
And we go from there.
That's right. That's right. So it's not a big fear to get a business mentor into your business, ladies. Just, you can just get in touch with David and you can have a chat. And, you probably find that very interesting and want to take that further, But don't sit there struggling with problems in your business, because quite often, just talking to someone can help you over that problem, and you can then emerge, from what you've seen as a block in your life. So just describe the typical process that you might take a client through.
So, I mean, look, I've tried to make the mentoring side of my business really, really simple and really easy. And one of the challenges people told me when I started to say, what's the need? I saw a need, and then I started asking questions, and people seem to reflect that. And when I looked at what were the challenges to people actually doing something about recognising that someone could add something to their business, the biggest challenge people had was, I don't know how much it's going to cost.
Yeah,
I fear that
people
it could
don't like that, do they?
I fear that it could be really, really expensive.
Yes.
If I want good advice, then I'd appreciate maybe I have to pay for it, but
that's right.
there's a limit to what I can pay.
Yep.
So what I've done is I've set it up as a subscription service.
Yes. Oh, that's a good idea.
So the idea is that you come in and you pay me a fee for a year.
Yes.
And on the back of that, what I will give you is time each month to arrange an agenda, if you like, for a meeting, to travel to and from a meeting with you, to sit there and talk for an hour or two in your meeting and address the agenda items.
Yes.
And where appropriate, maybe to take some of those items back so that those can be things that I do for your business.
Yes.
All inside that subscription service.
That's really good.
And so the idea is that the fee for that is meaningful enough that you make a commitment, because there's no good to either of us if you're not committed to sitting down and achieving benefits for your business. Equally, you should repay that fee 2, 3, 4, 5-fold, I would expect, by virtue of the work that we can do together.
Yes.
And the results you can achieve in your business as a result of that.
Yep.
And equally, it's not as significant a sum as people might think.
No.
if I was out charging for my time, we're talking a couple of hours worth of my time a month is what I would be charging.
Yes, that's right.
So you're getting benefits straight away, because you're likely to get more than that time out of me.
Yeah, it's a bit like what I do.
And look, for me, I get the answer a few ways. Obviously, I receive some payment for my services. I receive hopefully some really good professional well-being for the results we achieve in your business, and for me able to be a part of that with you.
Yeah.
And hopefully word of mouth, you tell others.
Yeah.
And as you grow and change, you may need someone to do other things in your business or for your business with you. And those we can look at as a separate undertaking if you've got something that you want someone to address.
And it might be that you just carry on with the ongoing relationship, that you're sat in the business there helping them.
Yeah, well, look, my ideal is that every year you come back to me and you say, we're making such great progress and we're really working well together, let's just keep this going.
Exactly, and that's what you'd hope for, because it's really ongoing business is really the key to most businesses, isn't it? It's much harder to get new business and pay for new business than it is to keep maintaining your existing.
Absolutely, and
customers.
business is ultimately all about relationships.
It is.
It's about relationships, and it's about your word, and it's about looking at what the market needs and how you might provide that, and then it's about getting on and making making yourself the most compelling provider of that to the market.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you do all those things, then look, business takes care of itself.
Yeah, unless you need to sort of up the ante with someone else coming in, then you've got to think about that.
Well, and saying business takes care of itself is really glib, but because it's never easy and there's always things to do.
No, yeah, that's right.
But you can look at a well-run business, and a business perhaps that isn't so well-run.
Yep.
And the well-run business, the people will have time, they'll have energy, they'll have a clear vision of where they're going, they'll have plans that are enacting to get there, and things seem to happen for them.
Yeah, that's right.
And equally, on the other side of that coin, sometimes we all end up in that space where we struggle and sometimes have to lift ourselves out of the hole and as I said earlier, see the wood for the trees. And it's about getting yourself back on track when you're in that space.
It is definitely. It is definitely. It's really, really good to talk with someone. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a song on now, because we do play some tunes on here. We just play some Kiwi music. And this morning I thought I might play something from my band, Spank. So there you go. I'm going to play Crazy Life, because I'm in the mood for that one today. Here it goes. Good morning, you're listening to 92.7 Arrow FM, and this is a Nothing Personal show with Nikki King, and we're sponsored by the amazing Jane Burns from Wairarapa Osteopathy. You can pop over to her website and visit that, I think it's wairarapaosteopathy.nz, and she's got 2 locations, one in Carterton and one in Masterton. And we're also sponsored by my business, Fuzzbox Designs, which is a website design, graphic design, social media company, and we can help you with anything digital marketing. So if you get in touch with us, that's awesome. And we're part of the Wairarapa Women in Business Facebook group, which is on Facebook, obviously. So today we're talking to David Lynn from Tall Trees Business Advisory, and he's a mentor. Well, that's one of his hats anyway. He's got a few hats. And we're talking about business mentoring and growing your business. And so hello again, David.
Hello again.
So we were talking about businesses getting in touch with you. So what are the typical kind of things that businesses face when they want to get a mentor in?
Look, I think a lot of people obviously, create a business idea and get it moving, and then some of them struggle to know quite how they inject the life into it from there.
Yep.
So they start to kind of feel their way around and ask lots more questions of everyone they know, and just try to find their way. So that can be kind of one of the earliest stages that someone like me with some mentoring insight might get involved with an organisation. Others have gone a little bit further down the road, maybe come into some success, started to see their things turn into something more, and start to wonder about whether they're ready for more. And that's a common next step for organisations to perhaps look at, maybe some mentoring, someone who can lend some experience. And some people do that by looking for a mentor. Others might do it by exercising their connections. They might add directors to their board, for example. And that's, in some ways is not an uncommon sort of a way of looking at what your mentor is. They can be a lot like an independent director, someone who is not necessarily involved in the business day to day, but has an ongoing relationship with the business, from week to week, month to month, and who can maybe ask the questions and exercise the insight that someone who's not dwelling in the business day to day, has the perhaps the ability to see. And hopefully also, obviously, of a mentor or director, they bring lots of experience that maybe can be applied, to your business idea. Beyond that, you start to get people who maybe look at significant change in their business. So are we going to set up a new line of business? Are we bringing a whole new range of offerings into the market? How do we prepare for those? How do we do those? It can be something that's forced on someone. So out of the blue, a great opportunity comes. Is it the best opportunity anyone ever had? Or is it actually the biggest concern you should have because it's too good to be true? How do you test? Or equally, someone new comes in with a proposition that fundamentally affects your ability to keep building your success. How do you respond? How do you manage to maintain what you've built and grow it through that? And sometimes whole markets change. There's a groundbreaking new initiative from somewhere, and overnight what you thought was going to be the business for the next 3, 5, 10 years clearly isn't.
There must have been quite a bit of that with all these disruptive technologies coming in.
Well, look, the technology has changed so many things. I mean, we can go back 100 years and look at what technology's done to industries like transport and logistics and things, which have just changed, consistently through that period.
That's right.
But if you look back at the last 20 years, there are probably 10, 20, 100-fold more changes that affect us day to day.
Exactly.
Some of them without us even knowing. But they underpin the way businesses work, and they underpin businesses that couldn't have been successful even 5 or 10 years ago. That's right, so those are the sorts of things we grapple with. And then, around that, people get those growing pains, different things. So is it a process question? Is it a systems question? Is it a how do I communicate more effectively? Is it how do I find, what the market thinks of what I'm doing? How do I get real insight, not just from my customers and clients, but maybe from the market at large? How do I measure what I'm doing? And how do I set my focus on where I go next and how I get there? Those are the fundamental questions that I think people looking, to a mentor are seeking to address. And those are just a slathering of a broad range of questions that people might ask. But those are the sorts of things that business owners are having to kind of keep their finger on the pulse of.
Yep.
And some they may feel incredibly capable themselves to just go out there, put in place a plan and go out and enact it.
Yep.
Others, maybe you get sort of the am I, will I, is it the right sort of questions. And that's when you want to perhaps, just pause and look for someone who can lend another voice to that, either to affirm that you're going the right way, to identify that you're going the right way, but perhaps need to do this and this as you do, or to say, actually, have you thought about it this way?
Yeah.
And whether you get that from from a mentor, from someone experienced in business, from someone with some insight into the field that you're engaged in, often it's a really easy thing to overlook where those gems can come from, which literally someone's thought can change the way a business functions. Yeah,
because you only ever look at the mainstream of your business. You don't actually look at all the skills that you could actually bring to a business sometimes. Because I know myself and my partner, we've got heaps of skills between us, and there could be something we're missing. It's like we desperately want to work together, but it's like we just don't know how to get there. So there's definitely it's valuable to have a business mentor come in and do that for you, isn't it?
Look, I think it's a case of not trying to create the problems before they exist. But most businesses have enough on their plate that they're trying to steer towards or away from, and that's where perhaps a mentor can help you to find a path that's if you like, the path of least resistance.
Yeah, that's right.
How do I get it done? How do I get it done easily, quickly, effectively, and without falling down a big hole that'll come back and bite me later on?
I know, because it is there's a lot of... I didn't understand at the beginning when I started my business how it is such a roller coaster to be on the business track. You're always solving problems all the time, and that can be quite exhausting, and it can lead to sometimes that you don't see those things from that a business mentor might see. I always feel that there's always something to be solved every week in a business.
And I urge a little bit of caution here as well, because ultimately the business is yours.
Yes, that's right.
The owner makes the decisions, the owner makes the calls. The mentor can only add their insight to that.
Yeah.
And obviously the mentor is hopefully going to bring the right sort of insight to that, and at least valid things to consider. But the business owner operates the business.
Exactly.
The business owner lives and breathes the business every day, and often not just for your 8-hour business day or whatever it may be. But it's a common refrain that you hear from people who are awake at 2 and 3 in the morning having ideas or worries or concerns or needing to jump out and develop this idea they had. Which we don't perhaps switch off from our business the way people might have once.
No.
And so it's from my point of view, it's how do I help someone to make the best decisions for their situation and their business?
Yes.
Using what we know.
Exactly.
And from there, hopefully, we combined knowledge, combined intellect, combined insight.
Yeah.
We make decisions that help businesses to grow.
Yeah, because you've worked for some pretty big companies, haven't you? Some pretty well-known ones as well. You've got a good background in business. Indeed.
I mean, look, it's interesting because a lot of the lessons you learn. I mean, it's an old adage that you learn more from your failures than your successes, and we all have our share of both of those. I would suggest that for all the big names that you might recognise that I've worked for and helped to achieve success in, I learned far more from the smaller businesses, the ones where you had to be nimble, the ones where you had to be on their feet.
It's interesting you should say that, because I think I've worked in corporate recruitment agencies and in small ones as well, and you definitely do learn more from the smaller businesses, I think, because as you said earlier, they are nimble, they have to change, whereas you get in a big corporate and it's like you're trying to get about 20 million people to change at once.
Look, and I think you want to do something you enjoy, and that's why most people will start a business, because they enjoy some aspect of what they're doing. And I've got to say that while people can enjoy corporate roles, there is no energy like you see in a small startup, where you've got a small team. Might be 1 or 2, might be 5 or 10, over time 20 or 30 people who just live and breathe the idea. And the energy, the accountability, the ability to get things done in those sorts of organisations is phenomenal.
The camaraderie, I think, I met Mr. King at a small software company in in England, and it was called Micro Retailer Systems. They did retail software for all sorts of little retailers, and there was about 30 staff, and the camaraderie between the 30 staff was amazing. I don't think I've ever worked in a company where it's been like that since, where everybody was just on the button and having fun, and there was jokes between each department, and it was just really good fun and nimble, and I learned a lot, and they wanted to progress people through to different roles because they didn't want to recruit anyone else, so it is a vibrant place to work in a small business. I really enjoyed it there. Glad I worked there because met Mr. K. But yeah, they are very good though, and I think they'd have benefited at the time when I left from having a mentor. I don't think that they were having issues with getting bigger. So those kind of issues we've just talked about today. So, I mean, there are lots of medium-sized businesses that go through that problem too, where they get to 30 staff and it's like, oh my,
Yeah, and you can look at businesses, and as they grow, I mean, you can almost see, from the outside where those growing pains are likely to take effect.
Yeah.
So it's, each business is unique, and just because 30 might be a common pain point doesn't mean every business will face that pain point there. But yes, there are common pain points where businesses do have to look at how they function and how they work, and whether or not what they've always done can be sustained going forward. And you don't want to lose often that whole sense of camaraderie you may have built, the relationships and the way that they work. But equally, sometimes you have to apply a little bit more discipline to the way that you work. You may need to change the way things are done. You may need to change some of the systems or processes that underpin that. The way people work changes. I mean, we've seen increasingly people moving out of central offices and into the community and into home and remote working and travelling over large distances in some cases. I have a mentor myself who some years ago who used to live in Singapore at the time and commute to London.
Yeah, wow.
So he'd be backwards and forwards at least each week on the plane backwards and forwards between Singapore and London. And you kind of go, you couldn't have countenanced that, not that many years ago.
No.
And I'm not sure that it's necessarily good for anyone to be travelling to that extent.
No.
But we talk about the way you do things. That organisation had a need for his skills to be applied to a certain issue, and he wanted to be able to live with his family where his family were without uprooting them.
Yeah.
So
he did that.
Even in a larger business, global business, there's needs must, and the organisation was prepared to compromise in order to allow him to work the way that he wanted to. But equally, a huge ask on him. Obviously he's volunteered for it, but I would suggest there's a limit to how long you can do something like that.
I would imagine so. We've got Skype now, the way.
We do.
I find more and more businesses wanting to do business over Skype.
And look, that whole video conferencing, not just Skype, but as you move up through the sizes of business, the larger systems from some of the more established vendors, are starting to bring whole new new capabilities in there.
That's right.
So the whole virtualized meeting space is phenomenal. You kind of wrap your head around Skype, and then you look at what some of the other video technologies, video conferencing technologies can deliver, and you start to go, okay, where does the line between real people and artificial intelligence start to blur?
I know, because that's a big thing these days. That's coming up, isn't it? And what was interesting about coming back to that 30 people, what was interesting about that, and why I say they might need a mentor, was that small things could affect morale in that size of company. It was quite amazing. You don't realise how that can be affected just by decisions that you make with the staff that you've got.
Yeah, and look, that is interesting, and not so much for me as a mentor, but certainly filling the same sort of role I might as a mentor. I worked for a very large company.
Yeah.
And in New Zealand, it had gone through a very long, extended period, a decade, of significant underperformance. Huge losses year on year on year. And while obviously they had a big parent that was so many fold larger again that they could sustain those, they obviously didn't want to maintain that. They wanted to address it and turn it around. And one of the issues I found when we got in the business was that whole issue of morale. People saw the business as the big old friendly benefactor it had been for 70 odd years it had been around at the time, and thought that life would always be okay, but it also got used to being beaten in the market, being downtrodden, being talked ill of. So the name was taking a bit of a beating publicly, even though those inside the business might have still thought that they were working hard and doing the right things, and saw the company as almost like a family.
Yeah.
A team of us at the head of the company sat down and said we wanted to turn that around.
Yeah.
I personally thought it was a 2-year undertaking. We looked at a number of things we had to change. We looked at the way the organisation was put together. We looked at the way that it worked together. We looked at the way that it submitted its services to the market. And in the end, we pulled back into a couple of threads that we wanted to explore. One was led by HR in the way that we wanted people to interact with one another.
Yeah.
And one was about the organisation saying, we're going to celebrate people's achievements, successful in the market or not.
That's right.
That company shocked and stunned me, because that simple program, it was layered and there was more to come and there were bits that were plugged into it.
Yep.
But those 2 initiatives in the space of 6 months transformed that organisation.
Wow, that's impressive, isn't it?
So people will respond when you get the triggers right.
Yeah, that's right.
And in that instance, clearly we did.
Yeah.
What was really, really great, and perhaps a little more unexpected, was that the market responded so positively so quickly too.
Yes.
So they went from being used to losing to winning. I remember the first large project they won, which was whole company stopped, 600 people stopped, and bells rang and all that sort of thing that people do in sales organisation. But what I soaked up was the change that came in that instant.
Yeah.
You know, there was that whole swelling thing. There was that recognition that they still could succeed. There was a recognition that the skills were worth something.
Yeah, and that's where it turns that whole thing around, isn't it? Once you achieve something, I mean, it's like I've been doing fitness. Once you achieve something, you carry on achieving and liking that feeling.
Absolutely. And I don't know that we could ever set out to say would transform an organisation that size in 6 months with anything like the degree of certainty that we might like to have.
Yeah.
But it does come down to you looking at your business, you taking on board the feedback from others about your business, whether they're customers, whether they're people looking in from the inside, whether they're people on the street who have heard things. Those are all important inputs. And then you work out how you make your team happy and responsive. All of the things that you want them to be. You want them to have fun. You want them to be effective. You want them to succeed. And you want the organisation to enjoy the benefits of that.
That's exactly right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to play one of my favourite songs to boost my morale. Yes, and you all might have heard this song before. This is by a band from Auckland called Groove Lagoon, and I just absolutely love it. If you're listening, Jamie Sill, this one's for you. It's called Shiver, and I'm just going to put that on now. She says...
You spit me out.
You're listening to 92.7 Arrow FM, and this is a Nothing Personal show with Nikki King, sponsored by Wairarapa Osteopathy, the lovely Jane Burns, and Fuzzbox Designs, which is my business. We do websites, graphic design, and marketing, and all sorts of other lovely things. Now, we're part of the Women in Business group. Now, on a Monday, I usually ask them, is there anything they want me to shout out on my show? And I've got two takers for that this morning. Louie Portman from Clareville Nursery. She's popped on that her roses at Clareville Nursery and Garden Centre are starting their blooming session. Sounds terrible, that, doesn't it? Blooming season. So beautiful roses. My roses are out at the moment. I've got some beautiful colours, and you can best time to call in now to see what the wonderful delights they are. So you can call in and see the blooms, if you garden, buy them, and they're only $24.95 for each bush and climbers. And that's cheers from Lou at Clareville Nursery and Garden Centre. So you can pop in there. And it's right next door to Clareville Bakery, which is where we have our first Friday group meeting. And that's the first Friday of every month. And we go in there at 8:30am and we have a coffee and we have a chat and we try and solve some problems for each other. So it's not quite as in-depth as a mentor, but somebody might have had something go on in the month and they throw it out to the ladies and we solve that problem. We try to anyway. We try and see what's going on. And we just have a chat if there's nothing going on for anyone. So off down to Louis. And then Casey, she has a business called Made to Clean. She's saying, get your home ready with Made to Clean, interior and exterior home cleaning. Now, if you go to Made to Clean website, I think it's .co.nz, you can see the services that Casey offers. She's very dynamic, Casey. She's got a couple of businesses. She's got one in Australia. She's one of our members. She's pretty cool. So those are the two announcements I've got at the moment. So in the studio this morning, I've got David Lynn, who is a business mentor of Tall Trees Business Advisory. And we've been talking about business mentoring, but now we're coming into sort of the last 10, 12 minutes of the show. I'm going to ask you a little bit about yourself. Now, I know, because we've had a meeting, that you are actually involved with football.
I am.
Oh, sorry. Go on. Yeah.
I am.
Oh, gosh, press the button.
There you go, the mic's on.
Yes, it is now.
Yes, I'm involved in football. It's one of those things that I guess has been part of my life since I was sort of very young, and like many children, took my first strides out in the football park. And so obviously this, for those who sort of go football, what's that? It's the game you might refer to as soccer sometimes.
It is football though, isn't it?
It is football.
It is, because I know I'm from the UK. It's football. It's definitely football.
Definitely football. And look, I grew up playing football, and I was fortunate to have some success and be seen by some people who made some opportunities become real for me.
That's cool.
And I sort of have played in various corners of the planet along the way. I also have coached along the way. Took out my coaching qualifications and what have you, and served for a period of time as a director of coaching for a football club here. Not in the Wairarapa, but in New Zealand. And when we moved the family down here three or so years ago, I spent a bit of time playing for some of the local clubs, and then I took on a role coaching my son's team, a little team of juniors, and that was interesting for me because when we sat down and had a talk with the parents at the start of the season, I said, how many children have played? And they're like, well, they all kick balls around. And I said, no, how many played in a team? Because watching them run around on the field in front of us, I could see that the answer wasn't all that many. And it turned out 3 had.
Yeah.
And so we watched while I spoke with the parents, and I just said to them at the end, we can do the season one of 2 ways. We can either get very good at defending and try and limit the amount we lose by, or we can be prepared to take a few beatings and have to deal with that with our children. But at the end of the season, we'll have a team of footballers who can move on. And they all went with the latter. So that was a bit of a roller coaster journey.
Yes.
That side lost some games by 6 or 7 goals at times.
Yeah.
But equally, by the end of the season, they were winning games by 4 and 5 goals.
Exactly.
So that's kind of neat in itself. It's kind of the other side. And then, obviously, in the more recent years, over the last couple of seasons, I've turned to refereeing.
Yes.
Put back into the game a little bit that way.
Oh, nice.
So, look, I referee for Capital Football. Everything from my son's side's sort of playing the junior leagues,
Yes.
right through the local men's leagues,
Yes.
the Capital Football Women's and Men's Leagues, right the way through to their top divisions, into the Central League. And look, it's a great opportunity to continue my involvement in the game, meet even more people, and enjoy the company of people while we do something that I've known for decades.
Yeah. So what's your favourite football team?
Yeah, this is where you get into dangerous territory.
It is really, isn't it? I know, because I grew up in the Northwest. There's quite a lot of football teams there.
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up alongside a neighbour who was from Manchester, and so I grew up as a Manchester United supporter,
Ooh.
which over the last sort of 15 or 20 years has mostly been a pretty fun sort of a journey it's been pretty successful. But going through school, all of my schoolmates supported Liverpool. So,
well, that's where I was leaning there. We've got a bit of camaraderie now.
I did my penance in secondary school. So where they won everything in sight, and we were not doing a lot.
I know. I used to. I'm from St Helens, which is halfway between Liverpool and Manchester. Half of the people in my school supported Manchester United. Half of my school, actually, and then there was the people who supported Everton. So but Everton, they came out of the woods a bit, didn't they? But so they had a big turnaround, and it went from Liverpool to Manchester United overnight, really. Yeah, Liverpool had won all those 21 seasons, and then all of a sudden it was on the other side of town. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the things that even here I think we forget. We think about all these big clubs in the UK that we all grew up looking at. I don't care whether your family was a football family or not. There's still half a dozen football clubs that in the UK.
Exactly.
And you get that feeling that that they're all separated by distance and all the rest of it. But by and large, they're all just down the road from one another.
Well, they're across the park in Liverpool. They used to. They called it across the park. Liverpool was one side of the park. Everton's the other side of the park.
Yeah. But you look at two of those sides, as we talked about, Liverpool and Man United have dominated lots of the the things you can compete for in England for most of the last 20 or 30 years, and they're 20 miles down the road from one another, effectively.
Exactly, but the FA Cup was always the one, because you always got the bogey teams that could actually make it through to the top, which was quite an interesting watch. That
and look, I mean, I think that's one of those things in sport that we all love, is that the underdogs can, at the end of the day, it's still in football 11 against 11. And underdogs can always win. So I think it's a bit of a life lesson.
Yeah, and another thing, but just while you're here, you share the care of your kids, don't you? That's increasingly something that happens as you go on in life, isn't it?
Indeed. Look, my wife and I made the decision 3 years ago to move to the Wairarapa.
We've got the lovely Henry in the studio this morning.
I've got Henry sitting over there. So far, so good. Very, very quietly.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have even known he was here.
Henry's 2.5, so he's sitting there at the moment with his headphones on, watching one of his favourite DVDs, which is great. Look, my wife and I made the decision to move here. We did so because we wanted the lifestyle that we remembered growing up in the provinces in New Zealand. And the children were just missing so much growing up in the middle of a big city. And so we certainly haven't regretted that for a second, but that decision is about the children. And in order to fit my wife's vocation and mine around one another, yes, we there's times when we have to juggle and compromise in order to make sure that the children get the care they need, and we get the things we need to get done.
That's right. I think a lot of families are going through that. Certainly we do occasionally. We have done in the past. So at the moment, Pete's not in a position where he used to work from home quite a bit, so we used to do a bit of juggling. But I think certainly in business, you've got to be prepared to juggle these days, eh?
Yeah, and look, part of that, I mean, it's a lesson for me. I mean, just because I'm a mentor doesn't mean I'm not guilty of lots of the same mistakes we all make along the way. And I find myself having to remind myself from time to time of the things that I need to get back to basics on.
Yeah.
But I love the kids. We have two somewhat older ones at 11 and 9, and obviously Henry at 2.5. Yeah. So. We mould the life around them, and we still get done what we need to get done, and we fit the pieces together. We have to make our own jigsaw some days to make all the pieces fit.
And I think that's the same with a lot of the women in business that we have. They've set this life up to juggle. They've set up a business so they can juggle. A lot
absolutely.
of them. Yeah, so it's a life choice nowadays, isn't it?
Well, I think too, a lot of businesses, start over the kitchen bench or the the kitchen table or the garage, and while it's like that, it can be really, really easy to see that you can make a success of it. What you learn along the way is how you keep being able to make a success of it as it gets bigger and takes more. We find that the hours in the day actually do grow if you use them effectively. Yeah.
So, before we finish, we've got about 5 minutes left. Do you want to let everybody know how they can get hold of you if they want to be mentored?
Yeah, by all means. Look, the easiest way is to get a hold of me straight away. Pick up the phone and give me a call. Yep. So, you can give me a call on 378 8800. Yep. So that's my business landline, 378 8800. Yep. Nice and simple. You can call my mobile, 021 688 097. That was 021 688 097. There's voicemail, obviously, on both of those. If I'm not available, I'll get right back to you as soon as I can. Or you can give me drop me an email. First brush, it's probably easiest to give me an email that comes through my own personal box. So david.a.lynn, that's LYNN, at outlook.com. Right. So those are 3 ways of reaching me. Happy to share what sorts of skills and experience I can bring to you. Happy to sit down and have a coffee, no obligation, and just have a bit of a chat and look at your view on the world. And then if there's opportunity for the two of us to put our heads together beyond that, then let's work that through.
Yeah, and I can say that we've met with David, and he's very fascinating, a very nice person. So to take that plunge, make sure it's not frightening. Just ring, and he's very easy to talk to. So I can personally vouch that you will not be intimidated at all, and it'll be a great experience. So. Final question. What's your favourite thing about Wairarapa?
Oh, look, I'm not sure that that's one you could have warned me about. But,
that's what they said last week.
I'm not sure that there is a clear favourite. What I do love is that the lifestyle is so different. It is what I remembered as a child. The people are so much easier to engage. Yeah. I've told the story. I think I've told you, but I've told the story about us moving down here, and we had to rent a property for 3 months while we waited to settle on the house that we'd lined up to buy. And as the day to move into the house we were buying was sort of coming closer, my daughter got an invitation to a birthday party, which was my opportunity to meet this new friend's parents. And after talking on the doorstep for 3/4 of an hour, when I thought I was dropping by for a 5-minute pickup after the party, he said, "How are you moving?" And I said, "Well, we've got the truck lined up for the big stuff, but I've got lots of boxes." And he said, "Oh, how are you moving those?" I said, "I'm going to get a truck and drive until it's done." And he said, "Oh, well, just tell me when and I'll do it with you." And I thought, we've got great friends in Auckland, God bless them, who will be lifelong friends and have been. Yes. But sometimes life gets in the way in a big city of even them doing what they'd like to do sometimes. And that ability just to make friends, exercise the friendships, and do things together is something that sets places like the Wairarapa apart. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so it is. It's an amazing place, isn't it? There's the people. It comes up so many times when I ask everyone that question, and it's the people and the surroundings, the beautiful surroundings that come up the most. And I think that is very true. I've certainly found here that there's so many opportunities and amazing people to work with. That is just. It's just great to live here. We're so lucky. We certainly are.
Yeah, thank you for being a fabulous guest today.
Well, thank you, Nikki, for having me along.
Yeah, no, and seriously out there, if you're watching or listening, get in touch with David if you've got some issues in your business. The first consultation, you just meet for a coffee, don't you? There's no obligation.
Absolutely.
So, it's not going to cost you anything. So I definitely do that. But we're going to have to wrap up because we're getting to the end of the show. Gosh, that went quickly this morning. Thank you for the women who dropped me some notes on my post to shout out. And thank you to Jane from Wairarapa Osteopathy for sponsoring the show. You know, without our sponsors, we wouldn't have a show, because this is an access radio station. We don't have any adverts, so our sponsors are gold. So thank you, Jane. And make sure, if you do support the show, you go off to visit our sponsors, Jane at Wairarapa Osteopathy, either in Carterton at the Wairarapa Natural Health Centre, or in Masterton at the Self-Heal Clinic, and you can find information about that on her website. Also, my business, Fuzzbox Designs, you know, you can just pop over to fuzzbox.co.nz, or we've got a Facebook page, or you can find me hanging out as the admin on Wairarapa Women in Business. I look after that, and I'll see you guys at the next First Friday. So, you've been listening to 92.7 Arrow FM, and this is a Nothing Personal show with Nikki King. I'll have another fabulous guest next week for you at 9:30, or you can tune in on Wairarapa TV, and we are repeated on a Wednesday. I think it's 9 p.m. You can see what the schedule's on the Arrow FM's website. So, thank you, and I'll see you all again next week. Goodbye.